Good afternoon. How are you all doing? My name is Mercedes Thurston, and I am the Mentor Protégé Program Manager for the Department of Navy Office of Small Business Programs. I will be doing a two-part presentation. So first, I'm going to give you a little bit of insight of how to conduct business with DoN, and then I will go further into the Mentor Protégé program in hopes that some of you will want to participate in the program. Okay, so first things first, we're gonna this is kind of what the doing business with DoN kind of goes through. So the first one we're gonna hit is the guiding document. Next slide. So DoN OSBP is strategically aligned with the National Defense Strategy and the DoN Business Operation Plan. So I believe during one of the panel that they had, one of the presenters said, make sure you read these documents. These are the three documents that we are linked to and what all of our strategies are linked to. Next slide. As you can see, this is our strategy alignment. I have some of these books as well on our strategy alignment. But the slide literally can link you to which one of these documents our strategic plans are linked to. So make sure you come see me. I have a lot of these. I don't want to carry these back with me. Next slide, please. Okay, so Executive Order 13985. So in summary, that memo has tasked federal agencies to increase small businesses. So of course that includes DoD and DoN. Next slide. Sorry, I'm going so fast. I have literally tons of slides, and I want to make sure you guys are able to ask some questions. Okay. So what is DoN doing to increase these small business opportunities? So we host a SECNAV roundtable. That's where SECNAV comes and sit down with all of our leadership, and we kind of go over some opportunities and things that we have going on with them. We do large business engagements. We're on a monthly or a bi-monthly time frame. We meet with large businesses and we ask them, what are you doing with small business? We reviewed your goals for all of the work that you're doing in the Department of Navy. You're not really meeting it. Your goals may be low. Why are you participating in this program, et cetera, et cetera. So we do that often to try to hold these large businesses accountable. We do plenty of webinars. We have started an Ask Me Anything series. So we kicked it off. Of course, COVID kind of put us in a virtual atmosphere. We've maintained that. And we try to make sure that we're doing at least 2 a month when we don't have our big conferences going on, which I'll tell you guys. So this is a long list of what we're doing, but I just hit some of the highlights. Next slide. So also to discuss the importance of small businesses to DoN. In 2016, ASN RDA assigned all deputy program managers as small business advocates. So that required them to identify opportunities for small business participation in their programs. And as you can see, from 2016 to 2017, we saw an increase. Up to now, we're at 18.4 billion of small business participation contracts and things that kind of got transitioned to small business because of this being one of the changes. Next slide. So the next thing we'll talk about is actually the Department of Navy Office of Small Business Programs. Next slide. Perfect. Small business delivers performance with agility and affordability. It is imperative to the Department of Navy to identify small businesses, startups, and non-traditional suppliers to contribute to the DoN efforts to modernize capabilities. So I just want to give you a small history of DoN OSBP. So it's evolved over time and has aggressively tried to engage with industry. Outreach has not been a response to regulation, but a response to the capabilities that DoN needs. So as I just mentioned, we recognize that small businesses have these innovative ideas, and we want to make sure that our goal is always to support the warfighter. So if you guys have some type of innovative idea, product, or service that's going to assist the warfighter, we try to make sure we do what we can to make sure we can get that to the warfighter. Okay, so a little bit of history. The original purpose of the program was designed to help contractors to do business with the federal government with a loan. Okay. But by 1999, it changed to where the program required federal contracting offices to reserve small businesses solicitations for certain thresholds. So it's kind of evolved out of we're going to loan you money to now we're looking to try to preserve some small business contracts for these small business communities and businesses that we know have the products or services that we need. Ultimately, in 1953, Congress created the Small Business Administration to continue to help stimulate growth of small business firms, and it has grown since. Thank you. So the Department of Navy is made up of Navy and Marine Corps, and with that, we have 10 major buying activities. What we're kind of transitioning from command, we used to call them commands, we're now starting to call them activities. And each one has its own special, unique category, products or service that they buy, which I'm going to go through very quick. Okay. So Marine Corps Installation and Logistics Command, they buy ground equipment. Marine Corps, I'm sorry, Marine Corps Systems Command by ground weapons and dabble in IT systems. They exercise contracting and technical authority for all Marine Corps ground weapons and information technology. MSC, so Military Sealift Command, they're our ocean transport, and we buy, we need to deliver. Or once we buy, we need to deliver. So that's them. They're very quick. They would buy freight services, engineering services, navigational service, and shipbuilding repair. Next slide. NAVAIR, or Naval Air System Command, all things aviation. So they buy materials to support the aircraft, airborne weapon systems for the United States, those types of things. NAVFAC, Naval Facilities Command, they handle anything construction and facility related to the Department of Navy. NAVC, all things ships. Engineers, builds, buys, and maintains Navy ships, submarines, and combat. Next slide, please. Naval Supply System Command. This is the majority of Navy's buy, hence the supply system. They buy services, materials, logistics, maritime items, aviation spares. In short, NAVC supplies the Navy or the Department of Navy with high quality supplies and services whenever and wherever those supplies are needed. NAVWAR delivers information warfare and cyber capabilities to the fleet and its Navy technical authorities. And ONR, they do research and development, and they're an arm of Department of Navy, and SBIR kind of falls under that, which I think you heard a lot about the SBIR program. Finally, Strategic Systems Program, or SSP. They do strategic weapon systems and missile programs. So what is the key takeaway from these 10 different commands / activities that I just told you about? The first thing is you're going to want to know your organization or know the organization. Don't try to go to NAVFAC if you have an IT service. NAVFAC is only doing construction. There's nothing that anybody at NAVFAC can do to assist you. So I just kind of laid out kind of a short synopsis of what each one of those do. And the operating plan that I have with me, it identifies the top 5 NAICS codes that each one of the buying commands bought in the past fiscal year 22. It also has the small business directors information, and they can get you more. So I'll kind of go into that later on in the future. But make sure you're doing the research and you're talking to the right command when you're trying to do business with the Navy or activity. So leverage the small business professionals. So I just mentioned that this book has the small business directors, and they have a team. So my office is small but mighty, and the small business community in the Navy is small but mighty. So we do our job. We are the advocates for you from the inside. So if there is something that you need or that you want, work with your small business professionals from the Navy, because I believe someone who was on the panel said it, sometimes government to government is more received than government to contractor. So make sure that you're using those professionals to kind of get you in the door and get you in front of the people that you need to see, such as the program manager who are developing those departments. And review the small business strategies posted on the commands for the activities website. That'll help you understand their initiatives and kind of what they have in place. Next slide. So this just kind of identifies the small business professionals that we kind of have all around, the United States, and kind of what organization they're in. This is also on our website as well. Next slide. So the next thing we're going to talk about is being procurement ready. So I kind of just talked about this. Research the command or activity that you want to work with. Um, our website, DoN OSBP website, has a active search function where you can search what the DoN buys. So if you're not sure which one of the 10 major buying activities is going to support, or you kind of feel like yours kind of can span across a couple of them, you want to look at search what the DoN buys. There you can put in your NAICS code or your PSC code, and it will pull up all of the procurements that we have done across the entire Department of Navy and which command has done. You can then go to that specific command's website, look at their long range acquisition estimates, and kind of see what new procurements they have coming out in the future, and then reach out to those small business professionals and say, hey, I see you have this activity coming up in the future. This is something that my company could do. Can you put me in front of the right people so that I can have those conversations? You want to have those conversations as early as possible, because as a recovering contracting officer, what I like to call myself, we get very picky once RFPs and things go on the street. So there's, you want to make sure that you're not going to give any preferential treatment. These long range acquisition estimates go out 3 to 5 years. So if you're starting on something that's 5 years in the making, likelihood is they haven't put out an RFP yet, or maybe they're just in an RFI stage. So those requirement holders can still have those conversations, and your small business professionals can help you and make sure you're getting in front of those. Also participate in the command or activities outreach, industry days, and industry events. That's also going to give you an opportunity to get in front of those requirement makers and those requirement holders. Industry days, RFIs, things like that. We are trying to gain as much knowledge as we can from you about how we should shape our requirements. There are definitely rules and regulations that we have to follow, but when we're having those events, we're really trying to gauge and kind of see what innovative ideas, what thought processes do you have? What do you think will make it work better? So please, if you can, try to take as much advantage of those opportunities, because that's going to give you a chance to kind of shape the requirements that are coming down. Next slide, please. Know your government points of entry. So SAM, NICO, and SBA. Next. So hopefully all of you guys know SBA. They have resources that you can utilize, local and regional economic development centers that can help you. I'm not an SBA guru, so I'm not even going to try to spend time, because we are the Department of Navy, and SBA is their own separate organization. So we do like to let you guys know, two separate organizations, but both of them have great resources that can be used. Next. All right, so hopefully many of you in this room know about a PTAC. They are now being called Apex Accelerators. If you don't know about your PTAC or your Apex Accelerator, this is something that you should know and that you should go get involved with right now. So PTACs, or I'm going to call them Apex Accelerators from here on out, have over 300 offices, and their resources are free to small businesses to help you figure out how to build RP, different things that you need to do within your company. They have free resources. They will give you different events, like today. They have a website with different events. So they are a great resource to use, especially if you're trying to get into the Department of Navy, Department of Defense. Next slide. So why why the transition from PTACs to Apex Accelerators? The Apex Accelerators just recently moved to, under the Department of Defense Office of Small Business Programs. So they didn't just change their name, they changed their location. And that's positive for you guys, because knowing what the DoD requirements are and what they're coming down to, it will come down directly from DoD to DoD OSBP, and those changes can be disseminated through those Apex Accelerators. So they'll be able to help you specifically with DoD even better now, because they're now directly aligned with DoD. Okay, so the next thing, I'm going to go through these slides very quickly. These are a lot of stats, but it's the regional small business performance and spend for this particular area, okay? So this slide just kind of lays out how Department of Navy small business performance has continued to increase over the years. So this first arm kind of is fiscal year 20 and how we had a 17.4 billion spend, which is 16.7% of all funding. And now we're in 2022 and we're at 19.57%. So the Department of Navy is consistently increasing their small business spend overall in general, but also in your area. This is currently where we are with our goals. So this is fiscal year 23. This is how much we spent to date and how we are with our goals. So you'll see the goals in the middle and kind of where we are at completing the goals. And we still have about 4 or 5 months, so we should be good. Next slide. So this was our goals for fiscal year 22. As you can see, we exceeded in all of the goals with this exception of STB, which we are working to improve that now. So the next slides I'm going to go through very quickly. You'll be able to see them once you get the slide deck. But it kind of lays out, this first one lays out the total prime awards. The next one is going to lay out small business prime awards across the United States, and it's color coordinated based on however much it is. And then as you continue to go down, it just goes through the different socioeconomic categories. So we have disadvantaged, service disabled veteran, woman-owned small business, and hub zone. So once you get the charts, you can kind of look at it more and just kind of. So next slide. Fiscal year 22 by portfolio. So this is kind of what we spent all of fiscal year 22. Department of Navy spent on a variety of goods and services. This one is going, next one, goes directly into the small business spend portfolio. And so this lays out how much money was spent in each one of the different categories. So of that 94 billion, 18.42 billion was small business awards. And these are the different categories that they went to. Next slide. So this talks about the small business performance in the Virginia area, the Norfolk, and within 50-mile radius, and kind of the percentage of what was bought, and also kind of gives a chart. So we just kind of want to give you an idea. We do actually keep track of who and what we're spending money to, and it's important to us to make sure you guys know, hey, this is who and where the money is going. Next slide. So this is our top NAICS code for this area. Of course, shipbuilding, we're right here on the water, so I don't think that's really a surprise to anyone. But these are the top 10 NAICS codes for the Norfolk, Virginia headquarters area and the money that's spent. Okay. Okay, so then the next one, just like we went through the United States, is going to go through. So this was the top for top NAICS for small business. The next one will be the top for PSC, overall PSC, and then it'll go into small business PSC. And then we even lay out the top vendors, which is large business, and then we even go through to the small businesses as well. Okay. All right, finally, on the doing business with the DoN, resources and assistance. Next slide. All right, so we have 8 steps to becoming procurement ready. This QR code will take you directly to our 8 steps to becoming procurement ready if you want to do business with the Department of Navy. And it lists the steps out and the direction of those steps. The 8 steps is also in this book. So that's one of the resources we provide. Next slide. This is a market research video that was created by NavalX Office of Small Business Programs. It's an informational video just about doing business with the Department of Navy, and that QR code should take you directly there. Okay, so you guys may have heard me mention a long-range acquisition estimate a couple of slides back. So I kind of want to take a few seconds to hit on that. So the long-range acquisition estimate is going to be what each one of the 10 buying activities foresee that they will be buying in the next 3 to 5 years. It is updated every 6 months. We just passed new regulations. So I'll hit that in the next slide. This QR code should take you to see the long range acquisition estimate. But those long range acquisition estimates are now on every one of the 10 major buying activity websites. And so, as I mentioned before, take a look at that and see what opportunities you feel like your company could possibly serve in those roles, and then get in front of those small business professionals. Oftentimes we say, hey, RFI, can a small business do it? And we only get one small business back. And then it goes out full and open, and we get a lot of, we could have did this, or we could have did this, or we could have did this. We were looking for the opportunities of those small businesses to put their hands up. So it's important for you to get in front of those small business professionals so they can say, oh, I know a company that can do this. I know a company that can do this. And we can determine if this entire piece needs to be small business set aside, if we can carve out a certain piece of it, because we know that there's a small business base that can do this, and kind of gives us that purview. So definitely reach out. Look at those long range acquisitions first, and then reach out to your small business professionals for that assistance. Okay. So the new guidance has been issued, that they used to be called long range acquisition forecast. They're now called long range acquisition estimate. And activities are working and have published their LRAs in the new format. So everyone should have the same format. So this should make it easier for small businesses to read and understand. This command doesn't have this, or this activity doesn't have this. It should look uniform across, so you'll be able to understand all of them. So once you understand one, you understand all. I think that is, I mentioned the common format, and now they're on a biannual cadence. So before, each command or activity just determined when they wanted to update it on their own. We now have regulations out that you have to do it twice a year, and they should all be on the same calendar. Okay? So that's going to be the biggest update to the LRAF LRAT. I'm not going to hit on this. You guys have heard about SBIR. I thought I had taken all of my SBIR slides out. So next slide. Thank you. Seaport. If you have not heard of Seaport Next Gen, Seaport Next Gen is the Department of Navy's mandatory contract vehicle for procurement for professional support services. So all 10 of the major buying activities, whatever professional support services they need, it will go through Seaport, with very, very, very few exceptions. Biggest thing or biggest takeaway, they typically do rolling admissions. We just did an Ask Me Anything with the Seaport program manager maybe a few months back, and she let us know that the next rolling admission is expected to be around the January, February timeframe of 2024. So if you are not currently in Seaport, an opportunity is coming up for you to roll into that. Next slide. So the DoD Procurement Toolbox is another resource for you all. The courses are relevant and available to industry and government officials, and of course, the courses may be. Next slide. All right, so this is our Connect With Us, which is the Department of the Navy Office of Small Business mailing list. So this will get you to all of our social accounts. We have a newsletter that comes out weekly, and it lets you know all of the events that are coming up from all of our 10 major buying activities. Also talks about all of the events that our office does. So that's something that you're interested in. Make sure you scan. The next presentation will also have that. Next slide. So we also do Navy Weeks. This is just our schedule for 2023 of Navy Week. So Department of Navy, my office, we go out and do these Navy Weeks where we talk to small businesses. It's just another outreach that we have. Next slide. Oh, I didn't know she had that. Okay. Gold Coast. So Navy Gold Coast is the Department of Navy's West Coast conference that we hold annually. The next one will be July 26th through the 28th. Scan the QR code for registration, go to the website, for more information. It is a great opportunity to network. We have exhibit halls where you'll have vendors, large and small. All 10 of the major buying command small businesses will be there. We have speakers on hot topics and major policy changes that are going on in the Department of Navy, not just that will affect small businesses, but overall Navy. We have breakout sessions for different learning and opportunities. So Gold Coast is a great opportunity for you guys to kind of go and learn. Next slide. SBIR in Space, we just wrapped up SBIR in Space about 3 weeks ago. The next one will be April 8th through the 10th of 2024. So this link is the DoN OSBP year-end review video. It summarizes what the Department of Navy's small businesses have done throughout the entire year. We highly encourage you to go review it. You'll get to really hits the highlights of each one of the major buying activities, kind of what they procured, how much small business activity they participated in, and kind of where we're going. And then the point of contact just for the Department of Navy Office of Small Business Program is here. We have our PAO email box and a phone number that will get you directly to our office. Okay, I'm going to pause to see if anybody has a couple of questions about doing business with DoN. And if there are no questions, then we'll roll into Mentor Protégé program. Yeah.
So first question is, who is filling in for Jimmy Smith now that he's retired? Until they get somebody hired, which will probably be about 6 months, right? That's the first question. The second one is, so we see a lot of RFIs come out, and this is now within 2 weeks, the second symposium I've been to where they talked about not enough companies. RFIs cost money, those ones, especially for bringing senior engineer in to help write a technical response. So you're looking at $1,000, $1,500 in time to write an RFI. We're not getting feedback from them. What is the Navy Small Business Office doing to start making it, more valuable to us? Because we don't mind spending money if we're learning from it, right? Not saying it has to go small business, but if we learn, then that helps us in the future. But so are we doing anything to start making that happen so that there is benefit to writing?
Thank you. Great question. So first response, our deputy, Mrs. Arvise Washington, is now the acting director and is filling in for Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith cannot be replaced, but Ms. Washington is doing an excellent job of stepping up and taking that responsibility. Now, secondly, to your response about the RFIs, my response to you is make sure you're working with that small business professional within that activity or command. Typically what happens is we get responses and then they're in the process of they being the program office and contract of, okay, we're getting ready to do the next step. However, that small business professional can go over and say, hey, why didn't this go small, all small, or what was wrong with this? Every single procurement, 99% of all procurements that are awarded within the Department of Navy have to go past the small business professional's desk. Likely that small business professional in that activity or command, which is why I said multiple times, get to know your small business professional. We have a small business director in every one of the major buying activity, and they have a team underneath them that works in all of their different field activities. So these small business professionals are going to look at it and say, hey, I know 2 companies. I just met with this company the other day. And often some of our small business directors, I think once a month kind of have a, give me a capabilities brief from a couple of small businesses. So they kind of have in their Rolodex, this is, oh, I know this company can do X, Y, and Z. Okay, well, let me see. Why are you saying this response is working? So those responses have to be given to the small business office in order to get concurrent when it comes to awarding a document. Are we trying to work with? Always. We're definitely always trying to work. Solution for today is work with that small business professional, because if they don't have the answer, they can get it very quickly, because them not signing off of it can stop an award. So working with that small business professional can kind of say, hey, I put in for this RFI. What happened? Was it just not enough responses? Was it something in there that they didn't feel like we met the capabilities? Having that conversation, because that small business professional come in, go back and say, hey, I see you said you did market research and you didn't get any, companies that met the requirements. However, I just met with this company and they have X, Y, and Z. So what was wrong with their response that it didn't meet your requirement? So that's today's solution. We're always working with contracts, constantly trying to figure out how we can better our rules and regulations and response and that feedback. Feedback is always important and you recognize it. So we're doing what we can to make sure. Okay. Any other questions? All right. So now we're going to talk about the Mentor Protege program. This is my baby. So I know a lot more about this. Okay. So next slide. So the Department of Defense Mentor Protege program was established in fiscal year 91 in response to DoD prime contractors concerns for small disadvantaged businesses that were not able to possess the technical capabilities necessary to perform subcontractor requirements. Okay. Thus, the Mentor Protege program was born. From 1991 until now, it has been considered a pilot program. I am happy to announce that the NDA 2023 has made the Mentor Protege program a permanent program. So we will always have funding for this program. So it provides, the Mentor Protege program provides incentives to DoD prime contractors to assist small businesses in enhancing business development, technology capabilities, ensuring subcontractor participation in government contracts and commercial contracts, and positioning small businesses to be prime contracts, which will increase the firm's technical and business infrastructure capability. Next slide. Okay, so the DoD Mentor Protege program, as I said, assists small businesses to successfully compete for a prime contract. I said at the very beginning, we understand small businesses are innovative. So this Mentor Protege program is really for those small businesses. You have this innovative technology. You just may not be prepared to do business with the Department of Navy or the Department of Defense. You get that mentor that can kind of help work with you to do facility clearances, to help you get those different processes and procedures in place, approve accounting system. This Mentor Protege program is anything to help develop you so that you can become a prime contractor with working with the Department of Defense and to foot stump you in the defense industrial. So the all Mentor Protege agreements consist of general business management assistance, such as like human resource training, capture management, proposal development, training on implementing DCAA compliance, and all of the things that I mentioned. And of course, technology training. So that includes implementation of quality management systems, certificates, or it can be a specific technology that is provided to benefit the DoD or a certain DoD program. I will venture off a little bit to say that the Navy has 5 current and active Mentor Protege agreements with a couple of more in the pipe. And each one of them are different in what they're providing. One of my Mentor Protege agreements, the Protege is working with a prime contractor that was getting ready to stop making a part that would make it obsolete to the Department of Navy. Under the Mentor Protege agreement, the mentor is now training the protege how to do and build this part. So now the Navy no longer has an obsolescence issue because this small business will continue to maintain and make this part for the Department of Navy. I have another Mentor Protege agreement where we're working on some software. So through the Mentor Protege agreement, a prime or a large business is working with a small business that has this innovative software, and the program office is going to test some of the capabilities of the software under the Mentor Protege program in hopes that when they get their next round of money, they can make it officially a part of the program. So the Mentor Protege program can be used in a variety of ways, and that technology transfer is huge. And for us in the Department of Navy, it is a big aspect of the Mentor Protege program. Next slide. So the biggest objective of the mentor protege is to establish, increase, and maintain a strong and more capable small business industrial base to support our warfighter, particularly in the areas of small disadvantaged business, women-owned small businesses, hub zones, service disabled veterans. We're enhancing your capabilities to make sure that you are going to be able and you will be prepared to not only one-time work with the Department of Defense, but to be sustained and continue to work with the Department of Defense and hopefully grow, be able to mentor somebody yourself. And then facilitate the formation of enhancement and long-term business relationships. So as I just mentioned, NDA 2023 codified the program from pilot to permanent. With that came some changes that were feedback from members like you, small businesses and large businesses alike, for them to participate in the Mentor Protege program. The first being lowering the threshold for the mentor eligibility. Currently, if you go look at DFAR's Appendix I, it says that the mentor has to have $100 million in total defense contract from the previous year, prior fiscal year. That can be subcontracts or prime contract. That number has been lowered to 25 million. Okay. We increased the duration of the mentor protege program. So I believe NDAA 2020 lowered the program from a 3-year program to a 2-year program. The permanent program is now up to 3 years, and it's a 3-year program. And if you really read hard in the appendix, DFAR's Appendix I, it has the capability to be 5 years. So keep that in mind. We're now going to do more enhanced data collection. So it requires DoD to maintain more outcome-based performance goals. There's now a pilot program within the program. Previously, the money, so because we do reimbursable, the money would go directly to the mentor for the efforts that they were working with the protege. We're now trying a pilot program where a percentage of what the mentor will get will go directly to the protege, for the protege to do some things under this mentor protege agreement. So that's very exciting. We're looking at some different aspects of how we can kind of enhance that. And then finally, there's going to be an increased post-reporting period. So before it was only 2 years of having to keep up and let us know like how you're doing. It's going to go from 2 to 5. Okay, next slide. Thank you. This chart just details the amount of fund DoD has invested in the key developmental areas. So in accordance with DFAR's Appendix I, the key developmental areas are research and development, knowledge-based services, and manufacturing, i.e. production items. However, if you do have something that is unique, that does not fall within these categories, that will support it specifically, especially the Department of the Navy, there is a little bit of leniency outside of these 3 key developmental areas, but these are typically the key areas that they look to support. Next slide. Okay, so this chart shows the amount of work current and former proteges have contributed to the DoD industrial base from 2018 to 2022. So as you can see, proteges from 91 up until now have continued to produce a lot for the Department of Defense. Next slide. This one shows the Navy's former and current proteges and how much money they're contributing to the Department of the Navy. Next slide, thank you. So this chart details the amount of funds that Department of Navy spends in procurement dollars for the developmental assistance areas. So we say we want you to be in these developmental assistance areas, and these charts are just showing you how we have and will continue to invest in those. Next slide. Just because proteges are small does not mean they cannot make a difference. This slide demonstrates just a few of the Navy program of record that current and past proteges have impacted. So as you can see, there are different systems, ships, software systems that have been used that small businesses have made an impact and have been a part of and are still a part of till this day. Next slide, please. Okay, so the Mentor Protege program provides a variety of benefits for everybody. The biggest being for Department of Defense and DoN is supporting the warfighter and bringing that innovative technology to establish defense acquisition programs. So as I mentioned before, a couple of my proteges currently right now are working on stuff that will hopefully be established and implemented into a program of record by the time their mentor protege agreement is over. So list out the DoN benefits here. You guys can read at your leisure. Next slide. What I really want to talk about is the benefits that it provides for the mentors and proteges. And for this audience, particularly, you're going to be the protege. So that technology transfer, as I mentioned, these large businesses are going to be working with you on every aspect of your business. And so with that being said, the Navy's never tried to get a facility clearance. So we know the process that we put in place, and we can say, well, go read the guidebook because it tells you to do this, this, and this. But I've never sat in the shoes of a contractor and been trying to get a facility clearance. While I know I hear the chicken and the egg. I need a contract to get a facility clearance, but I don't know that experience. The Mentor Protege program is going to provide you someone who has been through that, who's knocked down that wall to give you that opportunity. Okay. So the engineering and technical training, the business infrastructure enhancement, developing that business relationship with a prime contractor. So this is going to be something, it should be a win-win-win situation for everyone. So DoD and Department of Navy are getting a more capable small business. This mentor is building a relationship with a small business that hopefully is long-standing. And that protege is gaining all of this business infrastructure, but also building that relationship with that mentor where now you're getting subcontracts from them and they don't necessarily have to be competed because you're in this mentor protege program and they know that you're capable of doing it. Okay. Hopefully you as a small business will be able to be a prime on some of these small business set asides, and that large business can be your subcontract. So this is the type of relationship and things that are built and cultivated under the mentor protege agreement. All right, so who can be a mentor? So the eligibility for mentor, you have to be able to receive federal contracts, have a prime contract with at least one active subcontracting plan, have a contract totaling at least 25 million in previous fiscal year. As I said, that is in the works of happening right now. So you look at DFARS now, you're going to say it says 100 million. I understand that, but it's been signed out. We're just waiting for all of the paperwork to catch up. Has to be other than a small entity. However, that does not preclude you. If you are a small business that maybe have graduated from the 8A program, or there are a couple other things, you can still be a mentor and be a prime contractor with an active subcontracting, or as I mentioned, an AA graduate. You must demonstrate that you're qualified to provide assistance. So I don't want your mentor to only have 10 employees and 3 of them are going to be helping your small business. What is that going to do to that mentor? We are not in the business of putting anybody out of business. So both companies need to be able to sustain throughout the mentor protege agreement. Is it good financial health and character, and it's not disbarred or suspended? Who can be a protege? So biggest thing first is you have to fall under one of the eligibility socioeconomic categories. So disadvantaged, woman-owned, hub zone, service disabled, the employing severely disabled, Native American, Hawaiian-owned. A new one that they've added in is an entity providing goods or services in private sector critical to enhancing DoD supply base. You have to be a small business concern, so that means you are no more than your NAICS code in whatever your small business category may be. Satisfy at least one of the eligibility. You cannot be owned, have entity stock, or anything like that with your mentor. Your mentor cannot own you. There should be a complete and separate relationship, because this relationship is not going to be, I'm going to build this small business because it's going to build my pocket. No, we're going to work together to kind of help develop you all as and as a small business, you must be eligible to get awards for federal contracts. Okay, next slide, please. All right. So I know you've heard it said today, and I'm going to foot stump it again. The Department of Navy just does it better. We just got back from a mentor protege conference, and I believe 8 of the agencies currently under DoD are all have a mentor protege program. We all have to follow the DFARS Appendix I, but then how we do it after that, it depends on the agency. And we as Navy just do it better. I heard it time and time again. Our process is easier. It's hopefully less strenuous and limits the amount of resources that you have to put out until you are officially approved to participate in the mentor protege program. So first things first, we cannot provide a mentor to you. Okay. Those relationships just typically don't work. We are also not in the business of saying you need to work with this person because those agreements are not going to be cultivated agreements. The mentor and the protege need to know each other. You want to know each other's strengths and weaknesses. As a small business, I'm telling you that you're going to want to have somebody who you've seen them grow, and where their company is where your company wants to go. Okay. So you have to come to the table with your mentor. That's first things first. What I have been constantly preaching now is, or the question that I get is, well, how do I get a mentor? Can you give me a list of the approved mentors? We have a list of the approved mentors on our website. However, that does not mean that they're looking for a protege. What I want you to know is your mentor doesn't have to be an approved mentor when y'all come to me and say y'all want to do a mentor protege agreement. So just like I'm walking you guys through what the mentor protege process is for a protege, I'm more than happy to do that same steps or do those same steps for somebody who wants to be a mentor. And I can guide them through and work with them to get their DoD application approved while we're building your mentor protege agreement for the Department of Navy. Okay. So first step, mentor application. So once that mentor and protege decide they want to work together, mentor has to submit their application to DoD. I always recommend, and what has worked for us is you submit your mentor application to me. We will put an endorsement letter from our director on your mentor application and say, DoD, we vetted this company. We know that they would be a great mentor. Please approve them. Okay. Because you guys are already in the process of working on getting the mentor protege agreement with the Department of Navy. Okay. So once that mentor has been approved and the mentor and the protege have aligned, the first thing you want to do is choose a major buying activity. So all of our mentor protege agreements, the only way they get approved is you have that endorsement from that major buying activity. And what we say is your mentor protege agreement has to be linked to a challenge or capability gap for a program of record or future program of record. So that's why so many of our proteges are in actual DoD programs, because the product or service that they have filled a capabilities gap or a need within a program or a future program of record. Okay. So once you've decided whatever that capability gap or that program of record is that you are going to support, we then have what we call an informal introductory briefing. So that will be myself, that will be the small business professional from that major buying activity, to be that program manager that you're going to say, hey, I know you have this need and this is how we can support it. And we're all going to sit down and say, well, this is what we want to do with this mentor protege agreement. Program office, is there anything, or as we're doing this, is there anything you would like to see within this mentor protege agreement? And after we have that conversation, they say, yep, we want to move forward with it. This is when you will actually start submitting actual paperwork to get your mentor protege agreement approved. So I think the only thing that I've said that you had to submit before that step is that mentor application. Your mentor, a large business, you're approved to be a DoD mentor for 5 years. So that's an application that is good and well working. But for the protege and the mentor working together, the first time you're going to submit a actual application that has all of the writing and stuff is after we have that tentative agreement with the program office, with the small business, with all of the stakeholders in that mentor protege agreement. Okay. So after the introductory informal briefing, you will submit your official mentor protege agreement that lays out history about the mentor, about the protege, and what it is that you will be working on under that mentor protege agreement. It then gets submitted to that major buying activity where your technical rep, that was that stakeholder that was on the phone, and the small business professional from that activity will put an endorsement letter on it, and it comes to my office. Comes to my office, but I've already been briefed on this because I was a part of the process with you. I approve it and I submit for those funds from DoD, and we send those funds to our Center of Excellence. So we have a dedicated contracting officer and contract specialist that does all of our mentor protege agreements for the Department of Navy. So one of the issues that we had in the past was people were not aware of the mentor protege process. That was one thing that small business kept saying, hey, I'm trying to go to this contract out. We have a dedicated person or a dedicated team who does it. So they found ways to be more efficient, how to get things out quicker, less strenuous, and less paperwork for you all. So it goes to them, and they will award a standalone contract to your mentor for the work to be done under that mentor protege agreement. We have a guidebook. The guidebook lays out everything. I work very hard on it. It is in the process of being updated. I have to update it with the new regulations and et cetera, et cetera. It has a flow chart in it. The flow chart will link you back to the specific page in the guidebook. So if we're at the introductory briefing, you'll see that flow chart and you can look at it, page 26 of the guidebook, and you can literally go back to it. So that guidebook walks you step by step of what has to be done in the process of getting the mentor protege agreement. Along with me, I'm more than happy to help. That guidebook will be your Bible in getting your mentor protege agreement award. Okay, let's go. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. I already told y'all about the buying activities. Let's just keep going. Just keep going. Y'all can read all of this stuff later. There are three types of agreement: reimbursable. So reimbursable, the Department of Defense or Department of Navy will provide up to $1 million per year of the agreement. Next slide. Credit agreement is you can get that prime contractor can get subcontractor credit for the amount of efforts that they are spent. DCMA administer all credit agreements, and then there's a hybrid agreement. Okay, so Project Spectrum is something that proteges get in addition to the Mentor Protege program. So as you all heard, if you haven't, CMMC is coming apparently. So Project Spectrum is a DoD program that is offered free to the proteges if you're in the Mentor Protege program. So you can sign up for Project Spectrum now, you'll get like the basics of it. But as a part of being in the Mentor Protege program, you actually get a coach that will come in and assess your system and work with you to make sure that you are CMMC compliant. Next slide, all the way down to that's the same slide I told y'all about before, but next one. Then this is my direct contact information, my email address, and then my phone numbers, and that QR code takes you directly to the NPP page. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you guys. Make sure you come get the book too. Go ahead. Oh.
Great presentation. So quick question. You were briefing Navy. Is the same apply to all the Mentor Protege programs? First question. The second question, you didn't talk about manufacturing incentives. Is that part of your program or not?
The DoD Mentor Protege program is the DFARS compliances are the same for all of the agencies. How we do it is different from agency to agency. I know my Army and Air Force, they've just now opened it year round. We've been year round. They do a BAA. So you have to kind of submit a BAA white paper and then find out if you got picked, and then you have to submit some more paper after that. So that's why I was saying, I like to say we do it better because I don't want you to keep submitting until you know that you have something in the future. And then additional manufacturing incentive, no, for the Mentor Protege program that I'm aware of. but we can talk about how we can incorporate the current manufacturing into the mentor protege program. If that makes sense, I'll be here all night. That's it.
Thanks, Mercedes. All right, now I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Smith for some commercialization resources.
Okay, who needs to stand up and at least get the blood back in their legs? Okay. I'll do autographs later. I was thinking about the slide, and it's a great slide, but can you imagine the photographer up in the helicopter on the radio going, "Yo, carrier, can you move a little to the left?" Probably didn't happen that way. Commercialization is going to go really quick. I'm not Christy. She had to take care of some family challenges. Brian Shipley right there, great guy. He put the SMART in the SBIR program, not me. Okay. Been a while. What can I say? Navy does it better than anybody else because we believe in commercialization, in transition. Gonna go quickly. Program authorities, resources, best practices, talk really fast because it's the end of the day and you're probably tired of PowerPoint slides at this point. Okay. Once again, send me the email. I'll get the slides to you. They're only $1.50 each. So come on. Come on. Oh, let's back up. Right there. You don't even need to pay the $1.50. Just go to the website. Okay. Here are our programs. One of the things we do with the Navy program is we do a lot of pilots. We're always looking for ways to improve the program, mostly in the business side of doing things. Authorities, $240,000 for phase one, 1.8 for phase two. We kind of stay that. Those are policy directive of Congress. Thank you very much. But we do pilots. STP is a pilot. It's also a nested acronym, if you understand. That's an acronym within an acronym. It's where we take our phase two companies, put them through basically a 10-month MBA program on how to be a company. So the engineer that didn't get their law degree understands why you got to have a lawyer on the team to help you protect your intellectual property. On and on and on. STP has been a pilot for 23 years. And do you realize if you do a pilot for 3 to 5 years, it becomes the way you've always done it? That's how you get around a bureaucracy that doesn't want to change. Okay. You heard from the DoN SEC. You're not the only person that doesn't know how to get your system on board a Navy platform. And we do some strange things. I can tell you that the days we're in the fleet where in my helicopter, we actually cut one of those wooden crates that stuff gets stacked on. If you cut it just right, it fits in the hellhole in the middle of the helicopter so you can duct tape the antennas for the 4 radios you want to talk to people. And now you've made a command and control vehicle. Kind of neat. We do things like that. And you'd be amazed what a 6-pack of beer will do into a retired Navy chief's hands. Navy launch. Same thing. This is where we take those companies interested in dual use, ready to scale, ready to accept venture cap funding. Eyes wide open on how you do it, why you don't want to do it, and when you want to do it. Okay? So you can go to scale. Most of you would rather stay on your personal credit card. That's quite all right. Okay? Some of you are married. If you can convince the significant other that it's okay to put the second mortgage on the house, you can take that route too. Phase 3 authorities. I beat this drum all the time. Congress wants you to succeed. They gave us the authorities to cut a lot of the stuff out because they know once you've been competed, once you won that phase 1, phase 2, this goes straight to home. Okay. Doesn't apply, federally funded, any type of contract or agreement, but you still have to comply with procedures. Anybody that says you have to give up your SBIR data rights to get a phase 3 needs to come to see me because I'll explain to why they're violating the law and maybe they want to change their position. Or I'll rat them out. No limit on the number, duration, type, or dollar. So your $240,000 phase one becomes a $1.8 million phase two. If it's really going good, it's probably going to be a second $1.8 million phase two, or a little higher. Your first phase three most likely will be an additional R&D effort out of program office dollars going, we need to get it just a little further. And then they're going to go, hey, you handle a $10 million contract. Are you ready to scale to $50 million? Or a generation later, you can go, what do you mean? I just won $100 million. Right? True story. There you go. That's what we do in commercialization. How do we do it? We have TABA, we have CRP, which is money modifies behavior. We bring some money, we modify the program office's behavior. Second phase two, so we talked about subsequent and sequential. Just to understand, we've got lots of people working as hard as they can to get your technology across the finish line. TABA, if it's worth it, there you go. 6.5 in the phase one, 50,000 in phase two, to give you money so you can go get those experts that you need to help you understand, educate you on how to protect your intellectual property, educate you on how you make sure you're cyber compliant. Oh, by the way, I have cards. So if you're not sure about cyber compliance, we have a program and it's free. So you can give me half of what you're going to give the consultant and I'll give you one of these cards. Okay, just a third. We've got the teams, the phase three guidebook. The Air Force has a phase three guidebook. The only difference is they stole ours and they gave it better graphics. We talked about awards, so just find out what we've been doing, where we're going, and who's done it. Reach out, connect. And virtual marketplace right there is really helpful for us, for our companies, with our PMs. One thing COVID did help us understand is how to do things in a hybrid environment. We keep getting better at it. Okay, so we'll put you on the virtual transition marketplace so other PMs can find your technology. They can search on it. They can understand what they're going to do. It's going to have your information. They can reach out to you. And then we finish up with STP, your graduation exercise, your quinceañera, if you want, okay, prom. Or the rest of it is we take you to one of our conferences or the conference somewhere in the United States. So you decide which is best for you. Is it a Gold Coast in California? Is it a Sierra Space on the East Coast? Where do you think you're going to be in best position to talk to people? I think this year they talked about those at Sierra Space were on $1 million a row, along with the Lockheed Martins, the Bells, the Boeings, and the Raytheons. Lots of potential. Hey, how to stay in touch. URC codes, transitions, really nice little quarterly magazine. I have 50 little comments there that are fit for print because they are going to delete the tapes on today, right? Any questions on commercialization, Navy's intent for you to be successful?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks, Bob. All right.
One thing I forgot to pass, because you'll hear it. The Navy and every other DoD organization, except for the Air Force, has a position that's selected and not funded, is not selected. So if you were so lucky to get a selected, not funded notice from the Air Force, it's still a big no to the Navy. Sorry.
All right, last but certainly not least, Mr. Graham Plaster is going to come up here and talk to us about Nautilus.
All right, if you've made it this far, thank you for sticking in there. I'm Graham Plaster, Navy veteran and entrepreneur, and now the director of Nautilus. Nautilus is a nonprofit funded by NavalX. But my background was graduated from Naval Academy right after 9/11, 11 years active, and then was a contractor for a few years, ran a startup, started to dabble in venture capital, and then came over to the nonprofit side. So, a little reservist with Office of Naval Research. So the formula for Nautilus is DefenseWorks, which is a 501c3 in Florida, plus NavalX, which is the Navy's Innovation Federal Lab, which you've heard about, equals Nautilus. So we are the public-private partnership between the nonprofit and NavalX. And so what we do is we cast a big tent and we weave together an ecosystem. It'll sound similar to some of the other organizations that are being run, and I'll kind of pull that apart for you, kind of see where we're different. DefenseWorks has hubs all over the country, and these are all called PIAs, Partnership Intermediary Agreements, which is covered under Title 10 and Title 15 of Congressional Code. This is technically not a contract; it's a non-FAR agreement. And so if you look at Defense Acquisition University's span of contracting, you'll see it on the right side with the non-FAR options with OTAs and CRADAs and all that stuff. So these are all public-private partnerships between federal labs and DefenseWorks. And DefenseWorks has been doing this for about 10 years. You might have heard of SoftWorks, which is a partnership with SOCOM down in Tampa, big maker space. They've done a lot of really cool things there. You might have also heard of AFWorks, which was spun out of DefenseWorks originally as a PIA, and then Air Force took AFWorks in-house and turned it into a government organization, so it's no longer a public-private partnership. But we have partnerships with CIA, that's IC Works in Tampa, myself, Nautilus in Arlington, Virginia, NPS Works out in Monterey, California, and we're doing a lot of really interesting projects. So how do we differ from something like a tech bridge is a good question. And we can get to more questions briefly at the end. I'm going to kind of run through this at the end of the day. So tech bridges are federal organizations underneath NavalX, and they have a lot of connective tissue to the local ecosystem. So for instance, Mid-Atlantic Tech Bridge, right? And if you're already here, you might have already kind of leapfrogged over Nautilus in the sense that one of the things that I do is I go out and find companies that might not know about tech bridges, might not have ever bid on a government contract. And the track record of DefenseWorks hubs is that about 85% of the companies that we bring into our events have never done any business with the government. So they are non-traditional in the purest sense, in the sense that we're going out and find companies that maybe because of what they do, they had shied away from doing business with the government. And we say, hey, let's come check it out. Come to our event and we'll host something. We'll get you interested and show you the ropes. So we kind of nickname ourselves eHarmony.mil. We bring the parts together and get people talking. And in a lot of cases, we'll then hand off a company or a problem from government to a tech bridge or an existing government program and say, hey, you take this. We kind of cultivated it, or we'll partner and we'll be in the background and kind of move things along. We're another good way to think of us is, government has a program like the DMV, where like the tag and title of, AAA, like trying to help things move a little faster through the process. Because we're fully funded by the federal lab, in our case, NavalX, we are a neutral facilitator. So we don't advocate on behalf of a company. So if you come to me and say, hey, I've got a great company, I'd like to, get in the door, we say, well, we have to identify a problem first that matches to you. You can join our ecosystem by going to our website, which is nautilus22.org, and you can fill out the form and you'll be in our database. But we're not going to reach out to you and invite you to an event unless there is a funded requirement. And I'll actually soften that a little bit. Funded, we call it a desirement. So it's not an official maybe requirement yet, but maybe we've heard through the grapevine some sailors or Marines say, hey, we think this might be something that forms up into a requirement soon. We'd like to actually get to meet some emerging tech companies and crowdsource around them. I'm not going to go through this, but this is our process that all the DefenseWorks hubs use and has been kind of ironed out over the last 10 years. So you'll see this brief at SoftWorks and at ICWorks and all of them. And this is how we find a problem in government, and then we run it through like a 60 to 90-day sprint to bring emerging tech companies in, and then we matchmake. And we do two primary types of events. One is called a collaboration event. There's some light design thinking that goes on there, but basically, let's say we get 50 to 100 companies. Let's pick a topic, AI and drones, and then we get some warfighters in the room. And over the course of 1 to 3 days, we hash out the problem. We put it on some Excel spreadsheets. We hash out some of the possible solutions. We get a couple of the companies that are non-traditional talking to each other, maybe encourage them to do a joint venture or a collaboration together. And then we move to what's called an assessment event, and we allow the government to sit in a room with a couple of the companies that they've identified are really good contenders, and they can move forward with there to a non-FAR agreement with those companies to kind of pilot things and de-risk them. So this is not a process in order to get things on program record or right away onto a long-term contract. This is a process run through the PIA in order to try to de-risk things for the government for a non-traditional company. But along the way, there are opportunities for the companies that participate to learn about how to get into a long-term contract or learn about SBIR and things like that. And these are the other types of events that we can host through the PIA. We've done hackathons. We do a lot of STEM and STEAM outreach to high school and college and HBCUs, and we're constantly looking to cultivate the government STEM workforce, and that's part of the mission of our nonprofit. That's me. So I will be around if you have any questions. And do you have anyone have any questions right now?
But on that process flow that you had, it had 3 outcomes after you did the one-on-one event and went there. Then you talked about the collaborative event, how you get a group of people that have similar thoughts, or not similar thoughts, let's put it that way, but have similar problems and how to address it. Now, this is a question we get a lot of times from the tech bridge. Okay, how does a small company get paid in that process? Is it work through the PIA or it's goodwill? If you could explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, generally speaking, we do funding lines to the PIA. So there's a baseline funding that's funded by the lab. And then we can do additional funding lines with other government partners. And those can be then used for prize competitions or paying the companies to write white papers. So we actually incentivize some of the companies to participate through small amounts of money, either prize challenges or white papers or something like that. So it's basically small incentives to get people in the door so they're not wasting their time. We don't want to burn down the ecosystem by inviting people to events and then they walk away with zero, right? So we want to constantly be cultivating the ecosystem that even if they walk away and they didn't win the contract or didn't get anything, at least you paid them for their time. Does that answer your question? Well, SoftWorks actually has been granted authorities by SOCOM to actually run the SBIR program for SOCOM. So you can look at SoftWorks' website and kind of see how they've done it. I would say that since Bob's doing such an amazing job with Navy SBIR, I don't think we'll ever have a chance to do that for you. So long story short is, yeah, we would educate companies about the SBIR process and then hand them off to Navy SBIR. And through our process, that's one of the outcomes that they could go to is, because our process is pretty short. It's 30 to 120 days, depending on the nature of the technology and how many partners are involved.
We hope you got a lot out of this today. I want to thank all of the presenters. This was fantastic information. And please, we encourage you to reach out to the Mid-Atlantic Tech Bridge, reach out to all of the tech bridges, reach out to ONR NavalX. We're all a part of the solution of getting small businesses and innovators better connected to our big Navy problems and our DoD problems. So again, thank you for your participation.